Hi, I'm Amy Hawkins. The North Carolina Research Campus is beginning to dominate the horizon in downtown Kannapolis as several buildings and a parking deck are nearing completion. The core laboratory building is nearly completed with a grand opening planned this spring, and construction is underway on the Central Energy Plant and Research Institutes for NC State University and UNC Chapel Hill. The Nutrition Research Institute, a new effort by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, will open this summer. The 126,000 square foot Nutrition Research Institute will house a metabolic kitchen, clinical facilities, a cognitive assessment suite, laboratories, offices, and a body composition laboratory. Although the Nutrition Research Institute is still under construction, the research unit has already made a mark on Kannapolis. The UNC Nutrition Research Institute currently resides in a small storefront in Cannon Village. But don't let its humble appearance fool you. Big things are happening behind these doors. Dr. Stephen Zeisel is the director of the Nutrition Research Institute and is an international leader in nutrition research and is developing the field of individualized nutrition. The Institute is devoted to discovering why people differ greatly in metabolism and nutrition needs, and how we can study individual genes to help prevent cancer, obesity, diabetes, and other ailments. Dr. Zeisel and his team of researchers also established the requirement for choline, a newly recognized essential part of our diet.
Tell me a little bit about the Nutrition Research Institute here that's part of the University of North Carolina.
So this is going to be the first time really that UNC Chapel Hill has put a little piece of itself somewhere away from Chapel Hill. We'll be the UNC Chapel Hill's representative in the Charlotte-Kannapolis area. And the focus of this institute is to create a really world-class facility like the Howard Hughes Institute or the Scripps Institute, focused on understanding why do people vary so much in their metabolism. Some people have very high metabolism, some have low metabolism, some need more of a certain vitamin, some need less. And the field of nutrition has always acted like we're all average. And that's led to very average recommendations like eat less, exercise more, and eat some fruits and vegetables. The truth is, modern science can allow us to understand who is at the very high end of the curve and the low end of the curve, and we should be able to change nutrition into a customized nutrition, personalized nutrition. And this institute's job will be to develop the methods and science that allows nutrition physicians and nutrition specialists to do this in the future.
So to put it in simple terms, a lot of folks who perhaps go on diets or exercise programs change their diet and nutrition to try to meet certain goals. Some individuals will have success with some programs, some with others. Is that kind of...
Yes, I think another way to think about it is everybody knows an Uncle Joe who eats eggs every day and never gets a heart attack, and they know Aunt Sally who ate just a couple eggs and she gets a heart attack right away. So why are people different that way? And they aren't all the same. And if we can understand why they are genetically different, their genes are different, or why their metabolism is different, we should be able, from a series of tests, to tell people you need more of this vitamin, or you need to watch salt or eggs more than another person, and give them custom tailored advice that really reflects their own risk instead of average advice that really doesn't always apply to them.
And that's more than just a blood test. How does that process work?
Well, there's two new areas in science that we're going to be developing. One area is called nutrigenomics, or the use of information about your genes to understand how that affects your need for nutrition and metabolism. It turns out you have about 30,000 genes. There are then switches on each of those genes that can be turned on or off. And though everybody's been telling you we've sequenced the human gene and we know what it is, it turns out that each of us has about 50,000 mistakes, differences from the average human gene, and those are really important. We've done some work at Chapel Hill. We found that, for instance, half of women need a specific nutrient called choline. When they don't get it, they have trouble having a normal baby, they have liver problems and muscle problems. The other half of women don't need to eat it at all, and it's all due to one gene variation that's present in half of the population. So your genes can make a big difference. So that's a blood test in which we look at your DNA. The second thing is you go to the doctor's office now and they draw some blood from you, and they maybe run a cholesterol, and they might run a blood sugar, and they get just 1 or 2 measures. Well, it turns out that there are many more things in your blood than just those few things they're measuring. There are probably 5,000 unique, small chemicals in your blood. We now have the technology to see all 5,000 at once, and if we can develop computer software and the methods so that we can get our arms around what that means, we should be able to see a much better picture of you. So the best example I could give you, the old parable of you go up to an elephant with a blindfold on and you grab its tail and you think you're dealing with a snake, and somebody else grabs its leg and thinks it's dealing with a tree. A doctor does the same thing when it just gets a couple samples. They think that they're dealing with something and don't see the big picture. And with this new field called metabolomics that we're going to advance here, a doctor will be able from one blood sample to see 5,000 pieces of information and get a much better estimate of what you really are.
Now, one thing I have to ask, going back, you talked about choline as being an important nutrient. What is that found in?
Choline is found in eggs. And in fact, our first Appetite for Life talk, surprise, I'm going to get to give. And in that talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about how this nutrient that we never knew humans required until 1998 turns out to be really critically important for having a smart baby. And that in this nutrient found in eggs, in some meats, has been something we've been decreasing in our diet as we try to avoid fat and eggs and other foods. And in California, there's a recent paper out from the March of Dimes Foundation study that showed that women who are eating in the lowest fourth the amount of choline in their diets compared to the highest fourth of the population have 4 times the risk of having a baby with a birth defect. So there's all kinds of frontiers in nutrition that we never learned about in school that our institute is part of, and that we'll be telling the public about.
So there is some truth behind that old marketing slogan, the incredible edible egg.
Well, clearly, an egg was designed to grow a little baby chick up, and it's packed with a bunch of nutrients that we miss when we cut them out. On the other hand, there are things like cholesterol in eggs that we're trying to avoid. And so like in everything in nutrition, coming to some balance so that you're not going all in one direction, too much or too little, is probably the right way to go.
You can learn more about the UNC Nutrition Research Institute in upcoming programs by logging on to www.uncri.org. For details about the North Carolina Research Campus, just log on to www.ncresearchcampus.net.